Surgeons who play video games make 37% fewer errors. Your brain isn't being destroyed by screens, it's adapting. Here are the 3 neural protocols to upgrade your external brain.
Does this sound familiar? You need to remember a birthday, a phone number, or even just a cool idea you had 5 minutes ago. And what's your first instinct? It's not to actually remember it, right? It's to reach for your phone. You know, it's a feeling that's become almost universal.
And look, if that sounds like you, you are definitely not alone. That feeling of your focus being shattered, feeling a little disconnected, those frustrating little memory gaps, it's all part of a bigger picture. We're living in an age of non-stop distraction, and our brains are right there on the front lines.
Okay, first up, our digital brain drain. Let's just dive right in and tackle that massive question head on. Is all this screen time actually, genuinely, making us more forgetful?
So here's the thing. The research on this is kinda all over the place. It's a total paradox. On one hand, you've got studies linking heavy tech use to some pretty serious harms, right? Like heightened ADHD symptoms, issues with emotional intelligence, and of course, messed up sleep. But then, on the other hand, the science also shows some incredible benefits. Certain digital activities can actually be like a workout for your brain, improving things like multitasking, your working memory, and even your visual attention. So it's not as simple as tech is bad. It really is all about how we use it.
To really get this paradox, we've got to peek under the hood. So let's dive into the neuroscience and see what's actually happening inside our skulls when we're scrolling.
Okay, so researchers at UCLA did this amazing study. They scanned the brains of 2 groups of older adults while they were just searching the internet. The first group, who they called naive, almost never used the web. The second, the savvy group, used it constantly. And wow, the difference is just night and day. The naive brain, that's the one on top, shows hardly any activity. But look at the savvy brain on the bottom. It is lit up like a Christmas tree, especially in the areas that handle complex reasoning and decision-making.
Okay, but this is where it gets really mind-blowing. The researchers took that naive group and just had them search the internet for an hour a day for only 1 week. What you're seeing here is their brain before, in blue, and after, in red. I mean, just look at that explosion of new neural activity. In just 7 days, their brains started to rewire themselves to look more like the savvy users' brains, firing up those super important frontal lobe networks.
So what does this all mean? The big takeaway is this: our brains aren't just being passively damaged by all this technology. They're incredibly, well, plastic. They're actively and pretty quickly adapting to this new digital world. This isn't brain damage, it's brain adaptation. And that means we have the power to actually guide that change in a positive way.
Which leads us perfectly into our next section: building your external brain. You know, if our brains are adapting anyway, let's give them something really powerful to adapt to. Let's stop thinking about this as a problem and start seeing it as a potential cognitive upgrade.
So the big idea we're working with here is something called the extended mind. It's this fascinating theory from cognitive science that basically says our thinking doesn't just stop at our skull. The tools we use, whether it's a simple pen and paper or your super smart phone, can become actual functioning parts of our cognitive process. We can build and manage an external brain.
But, and this is super important, there's a huge difference in how we do this. On the left, you have cognitive offloading. This is the active, deliberate choice. It's when you organize information on the outside to free up your internal mental space for the deep thinking. Here, you control the tool. On the right, you've got digital amnesia. This is passive, it's reactive. It just creates dependency, and pretty soon the tool starts controlling you. It's the difference between building a library of knowledge and just asking the same questions over and over again. Our goal is to live on the left side of the screen. So the big question is, how do we actually do that? How do we stay on the left side? Well, here are 3 practical, totally actionable neural protocols you can start using today to train your external brain. Protocol 1 is active searching. And yeah, this ties directly back to that UCLA study we just looked at. Instead of just mindlessly typing into a search bar, treat it like a mental workout. Be intentional. Think about your question, really evaluate the results you get, and then synthesize that information. Every single search is a chance to fire up and strengthen those same neural circuits for complex reasoning that we saw lighting up in those brain scans. All right, Protocol 2, strategic gaming. And yes, I'm actually telling you to play video games. A ton of research shows that certain games, especially action games, can give you a major boost in specific cognitive skills. We're talking measurable improvements in things like your attention, your reaction time, and your ability to juggle different tasks.
Just how powerful can this be? Well, let me throw a number at you. 37%. What in the world could that possibly refer to?
That is the reduction in mistakes made by surgeons who regularly play action video games for at least 3 hours a week compared to their non-gaming colleagues. And get this, they were also 27% faster. So this isn't just about having fun, it's about training real-world skills that have serious consequences.
And finally, Protocol 3 is all about building a cognitive workspace. This is the structure for your external brain. The easiest way is to think of it in 3 layers. First, you need an immediate scratch pad, just a simple notes app for those fleeting thoughts. Second, a task buffer. Think of this like a project folder that holds all the context for something you're actively working on. And third, an episodic cache. This is your long-term searchable personal knowledge base. This simple structure is what turns a random pile of data into active, useful knowledge.
And that brings us to our final section, your cognitive future. Because really, this is all about making a shift. It's about moving away from worrying about just remembering facts and moving towards metacognition, which is really the skill of thinking about how you think.
All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the big things to remember? First, remember that technology can be a neuro exercise that literally remodels your brain. Second, the key is to actively manage that process by building an external brain so you can avoid that passive digital amnesia. And third, you have the tools to do it. The 3 protocols we talked about: active searching, strategic gaming, and building a structured cognitive workspace.
There's this great quote from researcher Tao An that just nails it. The cognitive workspace is not just where we store information, it is where understanding emerges. And that's the whole point, right? We're not just trying to build a bigger hard drive for our brain. We're trying to design the very space where new ideas and real understanding can actually happen.
And all of this really leads us to a huge, final question for the future. As artificial intelligence gets more and more powerful and becomes an even bigger part of our external brain, the game changes. It's no longer going to be about what we can remember, but what we choose to remember. What knowledge is so vital, so core to who we are, that we decide to keep it inside our own heads? That's the question we're all going to be answering in the years ahead.
Once you have offloaded your cognitive workspace, you must ensure the biological hardware is physically purged. Proceed to our Glymphatic Flush protocol to complete the cycle.